How many of you are thinking about doing a huge hike across the country? And how many of you would like to know what it's like to walk across the country from someone who's actually done it before? And how many of you are excited about learning this kind of information? My name is Mark Rajak, and welcome to the show, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about what it's like to walk from Chicago to Los Angeles. And before we move forward and introduce our guest, I want everyone to acknowledge why they're here. Maybe for a loved one, or for yourself, or maybe this kind of topic is beneficial to your profession. Whatever it is, thank you for being here today. And by the time this show is over, you will get to really know the latest man to walk Route 66. You'll learn what it takes to take on such an enormous task, and you'll become courageously inspired to chase your dreams. I went to a live Peak Potential seminar in Orlando in April of last year, and that was about 18 months ago where I met our guest for today. And after watching his inspirational vlogs on his Facebook page, I wanted to introduce him to you guys because of his huge heart and his willingness to love other people for who they are. And he's agreed to come here to share his wisdom and his hiking experience with you, and I'm truly honored for this opportunity. And I'm here today with none other than Dorian Santiago. He's an acting coach, originally from Chicago and resides in Atlanta, sharing his gift with others. How are you doing, Dorian?
I am amazing. Thank you so much for asking. How you doing, Mark?
Awesome. I'm doing fantastic. So, Dorian, first question, what is your story and how did you get started as an acting coach?
Actually, I just started as an actor, and I immersed myself in that. And I want to say for about 2 years, I was just taking a lot of acting classes, and I immersed myself in that business. And within 2 years, I had students, well, I had someone else's students. I was going to classes, and the students in his class were asking for my advice. And so all it took was one gentleman. His name is Haziq Ali. He actually, he asked why I didn't have my own studio and I wasn't teaching. And I said, well, I don't really have a lot of credits or anything like that, unlike the other teachers. And he said, well, you know, all it takes to be a professional is call yourself a professional. He's like, you have more than enough knowledge to share with people, so why don't you just do it? So the very next day, I called myself a professional. Here we are.
Right on. And then it just stemmed from there and you started to share your gift with other people.
Yes.
Right on. So one of the main reasons why I brought you here is because I have so many questions for you about your journey from Chicago to Los Angeles. I mean, most people were watching the Chicago Blackhawks lift the Stanley Cup, but you said, "Nah, you know what? I'm gonna walk to Los Angeles." So what inspired you to take action on something like that? I mean, most people would wait till they like maybe have a lot of money before they do something crazy like that, or like start traveling and taking trips. What inspired you to do that?
Well, first, you can't wait. The longer you wait, the longer you don't do it. And the longer you don't do it, you're more likely never to do it. There is never a perfect time to do anything except the present moment. And our fears keep us from doing that. You know, what's going to happen? Do I have enough money? Things like that, right? That's what we're thinking. Oh, you know, what happens if I come into problems? So I was all about taking action, whether I was ready or not, because when you actually take action, you start growing. You do and you adapt. You'll probably hear that later on in our interview also. So what inspired me, the honest moment that it happened was I wrote a screenplay about 3 years ago, and it's a humanitarian screenplay. It's about overcoming hatred, overcoming racism, just being a humanitarian. And I was watching President Obama's speech, the 50th anniversary speech of Selma. And he was speaking on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And they had walked 3 days. And something, I always say it's God inspired, because I know I couldn't have come up with this crazy idea myself, but I said it was God inspired. I heard a voice. The voice said, "Hey," it sounded much like my own, so I'm not that crazy. But it basically said, if you want your screenplay produced, you need to walk to LA. So I did.
Right on, right on. And what would you say kept you going?
My why. Why do I want to do this? Why do I need this to happen? Why do I need my screenplay produced? I believe that we're all here to help others, and we live in a very scared society. We believe that there's a scarcity of resources, of money, of love, of food, and that's just not the truth. We're told all these things, and we live in a world of fear. But I don't. So the thing that kept me going was I want to help people. I really want to help people. I want to help them become more enlightened. I want them to grow. I want them to attain their dreams. So if I attain my dreams, I will have an abundance to share with others to help them attain theirs.
Beautiful. So your why was really what kept you going. So was it like what you would wake up every day, you would think about that? Was there ever a time where maybe you're just like, I'm not really sure if I'm going to actually make it to LA?
Yeah, almost every other day.
Even towards the end of the trip.
There is, you wake up, and when you let yourself think about how far you've gotten or how far you have to go, instead of being in the present moment, once you take yourself out of that present moment, you instantly have doubts. You instantly let fear come in. But when you are present in the moment, it doesn't exist. I just know I had to get up and walk. So for a brief moment in the mornings, and it was on occasion. Like I said, it wasn't all the time, but it did happen. I got into a habit of just getting up, packing up my stuff, and possibly eating a little something and walking. There was no thinking involved in that. It was just doing. But when I let myself think a little, the thought was, damn, I gotta walk a lot more. Man, I haven't gotten that far. God, I'm really lonely. All of those things. But when you come back to the present moment and you just walk, you get lost in that. You get lost in the present moment. It's something that I call a Zen thing. In my acting, my coaching, I call it a Zen philosophy. I use that. If you're in the present and you use everything that's happening in the present, then nothing else matters. So the walking became easier as I progressed because I trained myself to be in the present moment. I wouldn't think about the future. I wouldn't think about the past. I was just thinking about the moment.
Right on. Now I know that you and I were talking a few times during your hike, both over Facebook and through the phone, and you were mentioning that you had meetings set up and stuff like that. Now, when you had first set out, or during your trip, did you ever have like a pinpoint location of where you wanted to go in Los Angeles? Or was it just like, I'm just going to go to Los Angeles and then figure it out when I get there?
Yeah, it was something like that. I just knew that I was walking the complete route. The route starts in front of the Art Institute in Chicago and ends at the end of Santa Monica Pier. So I knew I was walking the whole thing, and that's all I knew. Again, I felt if I was thinking about all those other things, then I wasn't staying in the moment. So I didn't overthink it. I didn't overplan. I didn't make any type of expectations of, hey, this is going to happen when I get there. It was, I just need to walk today, and I need to walk. That was it.
Right on. Okay, that makes sense. So just living presently, living in the moment, focusing on like one step at a time. Now, are you willing to share with us what your screenplay is about?
Sure. Yeah, not a problem. I can share the log line. It is about a white supremacist who has to deal with his racist beliefs, when the courts order him to take care of his black daughter that was born out of a rape.
Interesting. And like, where did that stem from?
God inspired. Again, I believe, sure, I can look at the world and say, hey, this needs to be addressed and this needs to be addressed. But something as wild as that idea, I believe comes from something greater than myself, and being a peaks person, there's a mastermind, something greater than ourselves provides us information and guidance, and I believe that's what happened with the screenplay and this walk.
I love it. I love it. Now, I want to go back to focusing on the walk a little bit more, talking about maintenance here. So how did you do things like cut your hair, bathe, brush your teeth, use the bathroom? Not too many questions at once.
No. Brush my teeth wasn't hard. Can do that. I carried a toothbrush and toothpaste. To rinse off, just had a little extra water from my camel pack. Let's see, haircuts didn't happen the whole time. Didn't have a haircut.
Really?
I had one shave as a reward. I went to a barber in Oklahoma City, which I think it was Tulsa, and got a straight razor shave. Other than that, I just didn't shave. I didn't feel it was a necessity, although because I walk Route 66, there's a lot of civilization. At any one of the truck stops that we pass or whatever, I could have stopped in and shaved. I felt I could have used my time better. I wasn't thinking about how I looked. Honestly, it was of very little importance. Bathing, I'd say every about 4 or 5 days, because we camped quite a bit. But every 4 to 5 days, we would find a place to either, a hotel room or campground where we could actually shower. What were the other ones? Oh, use the bathroom. All right. So for the most part, the world is a bathroom. I mean, when you're out in the wild, you just stop over, and if you have to, pee, you do it. Just make sure that you're not getting arrested for indecent exposure. And I would do my best to use the bathroom when we stopped. But on occasion, you have to find a bush. And we made sure to carry like baby wipes so that we could clean up. That was actually a shower sometimes. Sometimes it was 4 or 5, baby wipes, just wiping ourselves down to clean ourselves for a shower.
Now, what was it like when it rained? Did you ever take advantage of that and use that as a shower?
No. Actually, when it rained, we were walking. And when we were walking, there was normally a lot of civilization. So I don't think it was an opportune moment to, strip down and pull out some soap. So we never did that. When it rained, we actually tried to take as much shelter as possible, only because it's really uncomfortable to walk in soaking clothes.
Right.
You don't want to switch into more dry clothes and then those get wet. So it was limited.
Wow, amazing. And what about food? Like, what kind of stuff did you eat, and how did that work out for you guys?
Well, again, I walked a very civilized route, Route 66. A lot of restaurants, a lot of tourists. So I stopped to eat at most places. We'd carry some snacks, peanut butter, nuts, granola stuff. There were only a couple occasions where the distance between provisions was so big that we had to eat like canned food and crackers, canned ravioli, canned beans, stuff like that. Just enough to give us some energy to make it to the next stop.
So a little bit more about the planning. What kind of stuff were you wearing? Because I noticed that you had quite the selection of attire.
Yeah, all right. I had 2 pairs of shorts and 2 shirts. I bought another shirt towards the middle of the trip, but that was it. I mean, I wanted to carry as little as possible because I started off with a backpack. And 5 days into my walk, my feet were hurting like horribly. So I took a train back to Chicago to go to the hospital to see what was wrong. And they said that I actually had arthritis in my pinky toe, which I think is funny. Just to say the word pinky toe is funny to me. So they said I had arthritis in it and that I shouldn't do the walk. And I questioned them. I said, well, is it only in my pinky toe? And they said, yes. And I said, well, then cut it off. And I was completely serious. And they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And I said, well, I don't like your option and you don't like my option. So we have to come up with something that's going to work for both of us. And so they told me, they're like, well, just make sure that you elevate it, ibuprofen, rest it as much as possible, ice it. And it's funny. I bought new shoes when I was back in Chicago before I went back on the train to pick up where I left off. And never had another problem with my pinky toe. So it was a blessing. But yeah, I didn't really have too much because of the weight. I thought it would slow me down. I also wanted to pack light so that it wasn't taking a toll on my body.
Right. So just if you could just clarify for people, the incident where you had checked into the hospital, that was at the beginning of the trip?
Yes, I actually started on Sunday, which is May 3rd. It was like the 7th of May when I actually got on a train from Pontiac, Illinois, went back to Chicago, went to the hospital, and I already had my return ticket for Monday. So no matter what they were going to tell me or they were going to do, I was going back Monday to finish the walk. I mean, I was determined. It didn't matter what I was going to have to go through. So,
how's your toe doing now?
Pardon?
How's the toe doing now?
My feet are actually great. They look like hell. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to lose a couple more toenails. You can tell that they're bruised, and I don't even know if it's a toenail on there. It just looks weird. Okay. Like something that would grow on the bottom of a boat. So it looks like barnacles on my toes. Yeah, but they feel great. I still walk about 5 miles every couple days to keep my body. It got used to it, so it's like, hey, if I'm not doing it, I feel weird.
Did you ever have like withdrawals from music on your trip?
Oh, well, I was a little blessed because my brother actually bought me like a solar battery charger, and I did have some music downloaded on my phone. So on occasion, there were some bouts where I would walk like I wanted to pick up the pace, and I listened to the music. But I'm guessing it's because I did miss it that I wanted it. But when you're out there, you're walking, and you're in nature, it's really awesome to shut all the noise out. You get a really clear understanding of yourself and the world when you just quiet yourself down. So not having the music was also a blessing.
I like that. I just got back from Wizard Camp from Peak Potentials, and we had a lot of like connecting with nature and stuff like that. So I think that it can be a very powerful thing for a lot of people, and I'll speak for myself when I say that I recommend it. I recommend like people get out there and just take a little walk around the neighborhood if that's what it takes. If you could go back to the start of your trip and maybe do this all over again, is there anything that you would have done differently?
because I did have a goal of getting my screenplay produced, I believe I would have probably reached out to media uh, prior to the beginning of my trip, just so that they were aware. The problem that I believe I still would have run into is they want to know when you're there, so they can get the story right then and there. And when you're walking, you can't estimate. You seriously can't. As much as you want to say, oh yeah, well, I'm walking 22 miles a day. There might be a day where you're like, I just can't do it. Um, so that instantly screws up your time frame. But if there was one thing, that would have been the one thing. Like I would have reached out to media and other people, because I did reach out to sponsors. Uh, no one actually wanted to sponsor me as an individual. I believe if there was a team or a greater effort instead of just awareness, you know, they might have sponsored me. But I believe I did everything that I wanted to do before I started my walk. The only thing that I might have changed would have been.
I noticed in your vlogs that you were having a challenge. It looked like a challenging time in the desert. What would you say was the harder part? The beginning, having the courage to do it, or the desert?
Well, when you go through extreme conditions, it can be difficult, especially if you've never done it. Um, but taking that step to go through extreme conditions, like walking 22 miles a day, leaving the comforts of your home, that is already the extreme. So the desert becomes easier because you've taken that step. So taking that step and saying, hey, I am going to leave all the comforts of the world and walk 20 plus miles a day, I think that was probably the hardest step.
Wow, that's incredible. And now, what would you say is like you? I remember there was that one vlog that you had, like super inspirational. You mentioned that movies are a distraction and that you prefer the theater. So, can you tell me a little bit more about that philosophy?
Um, well, one of the things that I find is that a lot of independent films are thought-provoking. Commercial films are a distraction. Movies that are just blowing things up and make your mind race, and you're following the car chases. All of that is just a distraction from yourself. And I believe that I'm here to grow in this world. Um, and as I grow, I am to help others grow. So the only way that I can grow is not be distracted from myself. I have been distracted from my growth for a long time because of the world. And I'm not a victim of it because I enabled it. I let it happen. Um, but once I became aware that, hey, this is a distraction, I could be focusing on myself. Um, there was a paradigm shift. I realized, oh my God, like I can be a much better person. And in being a better person, I can affect a lot more people. I can affect a lot more people um, growing and connecting with people than sitting in a theater for 2.5 hours um, watching things grow up. And it's funny because I know people will say, well, you want a screenplay made, like you want your film made. But my film, again, I believe is probably going to be made on the independent side. And it's a thought-provoking film. It is about humanity. It is about how we interact and how we learn, and why we do the things that we do, and how we can change, as opposed to, oh, look, there are some robots that have invaded the world, and they're going to blow things up.
So, do you go to movies?
I do, and I watch mostly independent films because, again, I still believe that commercial films are a distraction. And I don't need a distraction from my life. I love my life, and the more that I learn about me, the more I want to connect with other people and learn about them.
So Ryan Roy, your coach, and
Yes.
I would imagine that you were checking in with him quite often during this trip. Also, a good friend of mine, as we met through the same avenue. He did something very special for you when right before you got to California, I believe it was. Now, describe the feeling that you incurred when you had seen that for the first time. I know you shared it in your vlogs, but let's do that for the people here today.
Um, so he wanted to help me. He wanted to help me get on Ellen, get a pedicure with Ellen. It was one of my goals because I thought it would be funny knowing that I've walked 2,500 miles to get a pedicure. You want to take care of your feet. As I walked along the route and I realized that I might not have toenails to have a pedicure, I thought this is going to be even funnier. Um, but he, and being my coach and seeing how close I was and hearing the struggles that I went through on a daily basis, he he went the extra mile as a coach, and we had an idea and reached out to a couple other um, Peaks people, a couple other warriors, and he made this video that basically was a tribute to my walk. And the first time I saw it, I mean, I cried. It was not just a beautiful gesture, but I thought, wow, like that guy in the video, it was like an out of body experience. If that guy would have been anybody else but me, I mean, I would have thought he was an amazing inspiration. Like, oh my God, like that guy is so awesome. And he has such wisdom. And knowing that all that crap came from me, all the things that I say, I was like, wow, like that was insightful. I can't believe that came from me. Um, but when that soaked in, like a couple seconds after the video, I was like, wow, like this walk is a beautiful thing. Like I've really grown, and it's been a blessing. Like I was just thanking God for people in my life and that have helped me get to where I am now.
Yeah, I saw the video. I think it's amazing, and I'm gonna put the link to the video in the description box below this video when it goes on my YouTube channel, so that everyone else can watch it after it's done. Now, when you got to California, I remember that you had asked your Facebook followers to pledge to your campaign so that you could receive ground support, and you had already walked pretty close to 2,000 miles. I mean, you were really getting there. And can you clarify for people why you needed the extra support when you were already so far into the journey?
Um, I reached the desert, and it was a terrain and it was an atmosphere that uh, I I didn't really plan for, because again I was in the moment. So when I got there, that's when I decided to pay attention to it and take care of it and address it. So when I got to California, actually just outside of California in Arizona, I was walking through the Mojave Desert, and I realized that the supplies that I would need to carry to get me through, because just through any one day was it's going to be like 3 times as much as I was carrying before in water, because it's just to tell you, at night when I went to sleep or attempted to sleep, I didn't really sleep too much in the desert. It was 102 degrees in my tent.
Wow.
Um, and everyone knows how uncomfortable it is to sleep in the heat. Mostly people don't do it. Yeah, I mean, you just can't do it. You don't get any sleep. So I knew I would have to carry a lot more weight. And I thought, well, in carrying the weight, I'm going to have to work just as much to carry the weight. So then I'm going to need more stuff still because I'm carrying the weight. So it was sort of like a catch-22. The more weight I carry, the more work I put out, which means the more weight I need to carry because I'm spending all that energy. So So I decided to get some ground support so that I didn't have to carry as much. I could sleep comfortably in the evening so that I could actually get the miles in that I needed to get in.
Now, when you had got to LA, you mentioned in one of your videos, the one where you were wearing the suit, that your house got foreclosed on. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, I am currently in the foreclosed home. They have reached out to me, and they have basically said I will have to be out by October 7th. So I won't have a place of my own. I have already had like 5 or 6 people reach out to me and offer me their place. Uh, it's everyone. It's different when I was on the road. It's a little bit easier to accept that, and I'm able to accept that help now. But just like anyone else, like we're prideful, right? We want to be self-sufficient, independent. But in doing the walk, I basically gave up everything that I had, any type of stability I had in order to do the walk. So I'm basically starting at square one, $0, 0 cents, no home, uh, just the clothes on my back.
And what's that feeling like?
Uh, if I'm in the moment, I'm not worried about it. It's no problem. I'm taking care of what I need to take care of right now. If I think about it, I could actually, I've thought about it both ways. Like, this is a little scary, right? I don't know how long it's going to take me to get back on my feet, because no matter what I do, there are still variables in the world that I have no control over. So it's also motivational, like, hey, I need to make sure that I work harder, I do more. Um, that can become stressful. So I stay in the moment. I think about today. I know things are going to be taken care of as long as I do what I'm supposed to do.
Right on. Well, what way to stay in the moment better than someone who just got back from a huge hike across the country? So I think you've already got that practice down, and I know that, Dorian, you have the strength in you to pull through from this. There's no doubt in my mind. I remember you posted quite a few pictures of beautiful people that you've met along the way, and many of these people gave you some money. Some paid for a hotel for you to sleep in, and I think there were even some people that they were like, hey, come crash on the couch, we'll cook you dinner and stuff like that. Like, just complete strangers. So did they stop you on the road? Did you approach them? I'm really amazed at how many people that you met, and how were you able to start that interaction?
Well, the only promotion that I actually did was with my sign. That was it. I have found in the world that whether it's The Secret or metaphysics, however you want to phrase it, that there is the law of attraction. So when you are doing something great, doing something for other people, people are going to want to do something for you. So I didn't really promote myself because I wanted people to help me because they wanted to help me. And those people, like Cream, rose to the top. It was like, hey, they stopped. They asked me. They could see me walk into a restaurant completely haggard and fatigued, and they're like, God, what's with that guy? And then see my cart outside and read the sign and check the sign in the Facebook, and they're like, oh, this guy's doing something crazy. Maybe we should help him. And I accepted the help freely. It wasn't, hey, can you give me that? Hey, can you do this? That happened online with people that were already following. But the complete strangers, that's exactly what they were. They just stop along the way and say, hey, you need any help? Do you need a ride? Sometimes they wouldn't even ask. They paid for dinner and left, and the waitress would say, hey, that was taken care of. And again, like, even now, it's emotional. Like, it was such a blessing. It was just such a blessing.
So did you like ever expect to meet so many like amazing, beautiful people on the way? Because I mean, like you mentioned earlier, like people got pride. Like most people would just kind of just be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm gonna keep going along my business. But you met, like you had so many miracles and so many blessings happen to you.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. This is a mindset, and this is my mindset. Um, you know, one of the greatest feelings in the world is giving. You know, when you give and you put a smile on someone's face, and you know that you've made the world a little bit better because you are giving. That's the greatest feeling. And a lot of us in the world, and I know I'm guilty of it, and this is why I can speak on it, is because what we do is we deny that because of pride. Oh, you know, you don't have to give me anything. Oh, no, no, no. Instead of just saying thank you, that was so wonderful. So we deny people their, and I think I even made a vlog about it, but we deny people their feel good, right? They want to feel good also, like they're doing something. And if I say, no, 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 that's okay, I've denied them that feeling. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. If people are, and if they have an ulterior motive, well, that's on them, right? But if they are giving because they are truly giving, then I don't want to take that away. And I didn't.
So when did you realize that you were actually going to make it to Los Angeles? I know you touched on it earlier. Was there ever a point where you're just like, you cross and you're like, I'm actually gonna make it? Holy shit.
Well, I know that at the end of Missouri, I was like, holy shit, like I'm really walking to Los Angeles. There was that holy shit moment. And then I want to say, God, it had to have been right towards the end. It had to have been right towards the end. Because it wasn't, you know, when I reached milestones, I focused on them that day. It wasn't like, oh my God, you know, we're going to be here in a week, and I'm excited to be out of Arizona in a week. I'm excited to be out of Oklahoma in a week. I didn't think about it that way. So when I thought about, oh my God, I'm actually going to do this, was just out of the desert when we hit like the suburbs of Los Angeles, which was still like 3 days of walking. I was like, oh my God, this is happening.
Because that must have been like the hardest part, really, the desert. Like I was getting tired just watching those videos.
It was a little difficult, only because of the heat, but the ground support, it really did. It helped so much that, as a matter of fact, the guy that walked the last 3 months with me, because I walked 4 months, but he walked 3 months with me. He kept saying it almost feels like cheating because we have ground support. And I can understand his sentiment there, but we still had to walk. We still had to walk the miles. So I can understand that, but you're still walking in 112, 115 degree heat. And, you know, for people that say, well, it's dry heat, I'm thinking, yeah, you're still in an oven. It doesn't matter if you're in an oven or, you know, you're in a sauna. 115 degrees is 115 degrees. It's not comfortable.
So go back to the beginning of the trip when you had like just first left your house, and I mean, or even right before that, and you're like, you know, I'm Dorian Santiago. I'm going to walk from Chicago to Los Angeles. I'm going to do this hike for humanity thing, and then you get on the road, and you're just kind of like, what the hell am I doing? Did that ever come up for you?
Yeah, that came in like the third day. Because, you know, you're on a little adrenaline kick. You're like, I'm doing this. This is awesome. And I have to note this. You know, I started my walk with 100 hugs because it was about humanity. So I was at the Cloud Gate in Chicago, and I gave 100 hugs to 100 basically strangers. There was only like 3 or 4 people that actually came with me to give me the hug that day and see me off. But about 3 days in, man, I was like, really? Why did I do this? Like, this is ridiculous. This is the stupidest idea ever. um, there were tears that day. I can tell you the pain was so bad that I kept walking. And I remember talking to my coach, Ryan. It hurt so bad that I didn't want to stop, because when I stopped, that's when it hurt the most. So I didn't want to stop to eat. I didn't want to stop to drink anything. I just didn't want to stop. And when I stopped, I mean, I cried. I just cried. It just hurt so bad. And it was during those times that I'm like, you are the stupidest person in the world. Why would you do something like this? This is not going to do anything. I eventually got over those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely tell you got over them, but I think it's so interesting, how we can like easily just doubt ourselves. And I mean, come on. I mean, walking from Chicago to Los Angeles is a pretty big deal. And I'm really glad that you got over it, because it was an amazing journey and I'm going to speak for myself, for me to watch you just walking every day. Like, I would log into my Facebook account and I'd be like, what's Dorian up to today? Like, no joke. Like, I would literally just wake up in the morning and I'd be like, man, Dorian didn't post a video yet. Like, I want to see his video. So it was a lot of fun watching you. Was there ever, kind of relating to the previous question, was there a point where like you wanted to just turn back? I know you said you wanted to just keep it.
There were stopping moments, but there was never a turn back. It was, and again, the moments were so brief. Because I'm an in the moment type of person, those moments last just that long. They last just a moment. They didn't last a day. They weren't like, oh my God, the whole day I'm freaking out and like, oh, I just want to turn back. Because if they did, when you start focusing on that, what we focus on expands. So if I focused on, oh my God, this hurts so much and I want to stop, and I kept focusing on it, then I would have stopped. So you gotta dismiss that thought almost as fast as it comes in. Like, why am I doing this? And dismiss it with your why. Why am I doing this? What am I going to get from this? How is this going to help me? How is this going to help the world? All of those things combat that thought. So yeah, there were a couple occasions where I was like, where I wanted to stop, but not necessarily ever turn back and go, oh, okay, well, I'll never do this again. Because that's been asked of me, and I can't actually give an absolute no. Like, I would never do this again. There might be a possibility that I do something like this again.
So I want to ask you a series of questions, and you just quickly fill in the blank. Okay. That would be great. So the hardest part, or the most difficult part of the trip, was
dealing with the pain in my feet.
The easiest part of the trip was
walking.
The most fun part?
Interaction with people.
Right on. The most boring part?
Walking.
And the scariest part?
There were a couple storms. Horribly scary.
Like, what kind of storms?
We crossed the border into Texas, and two nights in a row, there were tornado-like storms, and ridiculous lightning. The first night, we pitched on cement, so we didn't stake our tents into the ground, and we were literally like holding our tents up and down at the same time. Like, we didn't want them to blow away, and we were trying not to have them blow into our face, because the winds were just that strong. Golf ball size hail. It was probably the only time for about 5 minutes that I thought I could possibly die.
I think you posted a video about that. Is that correct?
Yeah, you might not be able to see my face, but I believe I was actually in the tent a couple times just yelling, like, the storm is here, and some craziness. I don't know how much you could hear, because the rain was loud, the thunder was loud, the wind was blowing. Like, it was crazy. I'm so sure that if I just would have opened up the flap of my tent, I would have seen a tornado right next to my damn tent. That's how severe it was.
Wow. I couldn't have done it without
Jack.
Let's talk about Jack in a minute.
All right.
One word to describe my walk would be
a blessing. Blessing.
I like that. That's beautiful. So Jack, your companion for the majority of the walk with you. How did you meet him, and when did he decide to join you?
Well, Jack, it was Labor Day weekend. I was walking through St. Louis, and Jack saw me walking. He saw my sign. He said the only thing that he could see was that it said hike. And so...
Wait a second, hold on. So you never met Jack before this trip?
Complete stranger.
Did you?
No, it's crazy to tell the story because I had a couple friends before I started walking. They're like, you're going to have people walk with you. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, who the hell is going to walk with me? This is the stupidest idea to begin with. This is the craziest shit. You think someone else is going to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to walk with you because I'm just as crazy. I'm like, you're crazy. So he was a stranger. He was going to a Memorial Day weekend party, and he passed me up, and his thought was, look, if I don't turn around and ask this dude, see what he's doing, it's going to bother me. So he turned around. He stopped in the middle of the street, and he asked me a couple questions. He's like, hey, you know what? Let me pull over. Pulled over into a little side lot. We started talking. He took me to the party that he was going to, introduced me to some people. Then he took me to a pub. We got something to eat, introduced me to some more people. He let me crash on his couch, took me to breakfast in the morning, gave me $100, and sent me on my way. And during that time that I was with him, he had brought up that he had thought about walking, doing something like that. And I said, well, why aren't you walking? And he had no good answer. I mean, and that's for all of us, right? Like, hey, I thought about this. Well, then why aren't you doing it? So that's one of the great things about this walk, is I met a lot of people that are like, hey, I've wanted to do this, and I wanted to do that, and I wanted to do this. And just saying, so why aren't you doing it? That gave them a lot of insight to themselves. Like, yeah, why am I not doing it? If I want to do it, I should do it. So, so about 8 days later, he gives me a text and he's like, hey, is it all right if I join you on your walk? And I'm like, yeah, sure, not a problem. Now, I had one other walker with me before. She helped me in Springfield, Illinois. Her name is Lauren Crocker. She gave me some water. And in that evening, she followed me on Facebook. She sent me a message on Facebook and she said, hey, I'd like to walk a couple days with you. She specifically said 4, but she didn't understand the levity of it. Like, oh my God, like carrying a pack, walking 20 some miles is not easy. So she only made it a day and a half, which was 31 miles for her, which I commend her. I think that was awesome. So with Jack, he asked if he can join, and I was like, yeah, sure. And I thought the same thing was going to happen. Maybe a couple days, and he'll be like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. So a friend of his drove him to St. Roberts, Missouri, and it was about 8 days later, and didn't leave my side from that point.
Dropped him off, and you guys
dropped him off, and we went.
Wow. Now, despite having Jack with you, did it ever get lonely?
Oh, sure. You're still sleeping in your own tent. Jack is a manly man, right? I'm a little bit more sensitive. I'm a little bit more vulnerable, especially since I'm an acting coach. I'm in touch with that. So, I'm a hugger, and you miss that physical touch of others. So you sleeping in your tent alone, you're like, God, I would like to have a warm body next to me, just someone to provide some comfort. So, yeah, I mean, Jack was great company, but sure, you still miss that companionship of someone like that.
Did you guys ever have your differences?
Every day, every day. I mean, and it's a beautiful thing because
Say that again.
no
Say
matter,
that.
pardon?
Just say that last part again because it just cut off.
I said every day, like our personalities are different. Like he is very cynical and I am very positive. And so, you know, he was always looking at, oh God, you know, well, there's this and there's that. And it felt very negative. And I had to battle that with my positive nature. But at the end of the day, like we were still good. Like there was never like, oh my God, like you need to stop this walk with me. Like get the hell out. There was never any of that. We realized that we balanced each other out. And he said it quite often. He's like, without someone like me, you don't shine, which is funny, you know, because he's like, my negativity makes your positivity look even better, which is logical thinking. But yeah, he was awesome.
That's an interesting perspective. My negativity makes your positivity look better. I love that.
Yeah.
Good words of wisdom from the man of Jack himself. Now, do you feel safer here or out there on the walk?
Oh, you know, one thing that I learned is that I'm always safe. I'm always safe. You know, the news tells us that people, you know, there's home invasions and there's murders and there's all those things. But the reason that they cover those things is because there's so few of them. You know, Wayne Dyer, I believe you know who he is, right?
R.I.P.
Yeah. He said something along the lines of, for every one bad thing, there's 1,000 good things in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think of that. I mean, that's a huge number, like 1 in 1,000. So for everyone that's speaking, you know, negatively, there's 1,000 people that are speaking positively. So, so I always feel safe. If something happens, it's not because I don't feel safe. It's because, you know, on occasion things happen. You know, I don't feel like I need to lock my door. You know, again, the rarity of something happening to me purposefully, 1 in millions. You know, on accident, it's probably there's probably a greater chance, but can't worry about that. Like if I did that, I would stop living.
So, what advice would you say that you have for future walkers? What's kind of like in the nutshell of advice you could give them?
Ooh, future walkers. All right, future walkers. Don't stop walking. And as I said earlier in the interview, I knew I'd bring it up again. You just have to do and adapt. There was no one day that was the same as the next, where you think your toes are fine, your ankles start to hurt. The next day, your ankles and your knees start to hurt. It's always different. Everything is different, and you have to just be aware of that. You just have to do and adapt. And again, don't stop walking. It's crazy, because I brought up the Ellen thing, right? The pedicure with Ellen, and it's funny because there's a great similarity between myself and Ellen that I brought up in one of my videos, because Ellen was the voice of this character Dory in Finding Nemo, and she had a saying that she told to Nemo's father. What she kept saying was, "Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming." And they were going to get to where they needed to go. And it's funny because I just said, that's all I would say is, you know, just got to keep walking.
What about like the planning part though?
Here's the greatest advice I can give you about planning, okay? Because when I met Jack, Jack was like, well, how are you going to get through the desert? It's exactly what he said. That was one of the first questions. Like 4 questions in, he was like, well, how are you going to get through the desert? And I said, I don't know, because I'm not there yet, right? Because I don't know what the desert was going to have, what the obstacle was going to be. Heat. If it was just heat, then I knew I could just take water. I had no idea. But once you actually encounter the obstacle, that's when you can analyze it and overcome it. So again, it's a do and adapt. All the world's greatest planning, and if you've never read the book of Mice and Men, they say, all good plans of mice, all good plans of mice and men often go awry. And that's, you know, we plan and we plan and we plan, and then nothing goes according to plan. So what happens is we stop. Like, oh, it didn't go the way I was thinking, so I'm gonna quit. So if you are trying to make your reality fit the way you think you planned it, it won't happen. So sure, you can plan, right? Hey, I need to take some food. Hey, I need to do this. Hey, I need to do that. But things are gonna change, and you have to be ready to adapt to that change. So sure, plan. Don't let it stop you from actually doing, because you can sit in a planning stage forever, right? Oh, like you said earlier, do I have enough money, right? Do I have enough supplies? Are there enough followers? If you do all of that, you will never do. And what I came to realize is when you start doing, all of those other things start to fall into place. You know, they say, you know, when you act, when you do, and you move, providence moves with you. So you start doing, and everything else will just start working with you.
That's beautiful. Dorian Santiago, everybody, the most recent human being to walk from Chicago to Los Angeles via Route 66. What do you leave people with? Do you have any final words?
Yes. Every day is a blessing. Every moment is a blessing. Don't waste it with negative energy. Realize that you are your best self at any given moment. And the only way that you will be a better, best self is to become enlightened. The only way you do that is by gaining knowledge from others, books, interactions with people. So use your day. Use your day. Make it amazing. If it already is, be aware of that.
Beautiful. I pretty much just got goosebumps, and you almost just brought tears to my eyes. I think that's phenomenal. Now, if people want to reach out to you, I'm gonna put the link to your Facebook page as well. I've read your book, Get Your Act Together: How to Live an Oscar-Worthy Life.
Oh, you're the one? That's awesome.
Yeah, I read it. And I'll put the link to the GoFundMe page as well. And I understand that you're sending out copies of your book for people who donate $50 or pledge $50 to your GoFundMe campaign. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So I'll make sure to have those links in the description box. Dorian, thank you so much for being here. What a blessing. What an honor it is to have the chance to interview you. I've had a lot of questions for you, and I'm so blessed. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, taking time to actually interview me, Mark. It's also a blessing. And I'm glad that I could help and reach out, and hopefully this touches people in the way, in a positive way.
And for anyone else who's watching this right now, be sure to share this. Also like and subscribe, and check out Dorian as well. Dorian, in case no one has told you today, I love you.
Thank you so much, Mark. If no one has told you today, I love you.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
You also.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.